Hi. So we're quite familiar with Yoko Taro, obviously. And Yoko Taro is a big influence on the NieR games and the Drakengard games. He's actually gone on record to be a connoisseur of cheesecake and boob and butt, which he's a man after my own heart personally. But we know that Yoko Taro is what we would consider to be a weird person. And that's not a terrible thing. I think weird people are very much in need in the industry. You have to be weird in order to want to come up with the idea of creating new game worlds and new concepts and going against the norm to make things that people would find interesting or fascinating. Being not normal is kind of a prerequisite of being a developer or creator or creative of some sort, because you're definitely not the average person. You're not destined to work a desk job or be a salaryman if you're Japanese or any of those other things. You may work in that world to get into the positions that you want to into other things. Like I worked the Boston market and I worked fast food jobs for a while. I did telemarketing before I became a graphic designer. I'm on vacation technically, by the way, so you might see a few more videos than normal. Don't get used to it. I'm just working through my backlog of things I wanted to do videos on, but didn't have time to because I was working my day job. But yeah, if you get a couple more videos than normal, enjoy them, but don't think too deeply into it. So Yoko Taro, man after my own heart, came out and said there are less weird people in the gaming industry nowadays, and he's right. There seems to be more of an aspect of people that are trying to get into the industry to create like realistic games, and they're capitulating to a bunch of weirdos on Twitter, and they're trying to distance themselves from the odd man mentality, or just distancing themselves from things that we would normally would have looked at as cool. People who are weird, especially back in the early days of the industry, there's a lot of people that were, I would say, they were weird, but the quirkiness actually added to the game development. People came up with these weird ideas, like off-kilter, kind of away from the norm ideas, and they turn into things that were kind of notable things in the industry. Drakengard and NieR series creator Yoko Taro is known for being fairly unconventional, both in the sense of self-preservation and the stories he tells through his games. However, hiding behind that creepy mask and enigmatic persona is an avid X user. Recently, he's opened up a QA box for fans, answering questions on various topics, ranging from restaurants recommendations and life advice to industry insight. One fan asked a question about whether the gaming industry has a lot of weird people, to which Yoko Taro has responded, "Not as many as there used to be, but how important are the actual weirdos of the industry, and what does it mean to be a weirdo nowadays?" I was reading in the biography of game creators and laughing like Lamau, there sure are a lot of people with strange personalities. Is this true that there's actually a lot of weirdos in the game industry? If it is, which sectors have the most of them? The fan asked in their message. That's a good question. Yoko replied in his X account, "I've been a big part of the game industry for 30 years now. I feel that there is less weird people now. I don't know if this is something that's simply happening in my field of view, or if the game industry ended up like this, or the whole world is like this now. To be weird is to be free, and it is no exaggeration to say that Yoko Taro himself is a weird guy. He even called his own games weird games for weird people in his past talks. The emphasis on weirdness seems to be the foundation he builds his games upon, focusing more on niche tastes of the author rather than having elements that would be considered marketable. In an amalgamation of talent, luck, and rebellious spirit, this seems to end up being a recipe for success." Yeah, I would say so. And I think the reason why it's a recipe for success is because there's a lot of artists that don't necessarily march to the beat of the same drum, and they kind of put a lot of that into their own work. And you see it through manga or anime like Soul Eater. Soul Eater is a really good example, because look at the world of Soul Eater. It's like crazy, it's wacky, it's not normal, whatever. And those are the things that stand out. Those are the things that actually really kind of are memorable. So I did a video, I guess it was a stream doing a review of Maximum Overdrive, the 1986 film Stephen King directed. And I said this before, and I think it actually does kind of fit. You can be anything, but if you are boring, you will never be remembered. There's nothing wrong with having a quirk or a personality. Now, there's people that will try to be quirky for the sake of being quirky, and I think that's try-hard behavior. But if you're slightly just off and you have a certain perspective that only you can bring to the table, I think those are the types of viewpoints we should see more of. But you might have to go indie in order to get that, because obviously you're working against the management of a business or whatever. You're working against the people that have been there forever, and they want things a certain way, and they think that gamers want things a certain way. But I mean, indie games are probably going to be the place where you're going to shine if you're kind of quirky and you have that drive to want to put something out there. And I swear to you, that's probably the best place you can go. Yoko Taro has previously suggested that creators who go against the mainstream, like Iko's Fumito Ueda, and the ones who make new epochs. And he always emphasizes the importance of being different and going against what everyone else in the industry is doing. In a joint discussion with directors of Stellar Blade and Goddess of Victory Nikkei, Yoko explained his process of creating characters for the NieR series. Our concept is always to do something that's not like anything else. If a Western sci-fi is filled with Marine-like soldiers, we might go in the opposite direction and use Gothic Lolita outfits, which is basically what you did for NieR Automata. We tend to take the contrarian route. So what he's saying is, like, basically it's okay to go against the grain. It's okay to do something different or doing something unconventional in order to get attention on you more so than going the normal route. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's a great idea, in all honesty. If what Yoko said in this X post is true, then there are actually less weird people who would challenge the norms and create games which go against the expectations and demands of the market. What does that mean for the gaming industry? Yoko's already shared some of his predictions on the future of the gaming industry, saying that game developers probably won't be able to make a living in the future if AI takes over, and that in around 50 years, they'll be treated like bards. However, he advises fans to take all of his predictions with a grain of salt. Now, I'm not going to speak much on the AI thing, because I feel like AI is kind of an answer to a problem that was created by overbloat and over production and spending a lot of time getting a bunch of people to do the job of like 20 people. Now you've created all these situations that you've painted yourself basically into a corner, and now you're using AI in order to get yourself out of that. So basically stop making bloated, produced, over complicated games, whatever, and start making smaller ventures and save your larger AAA games to maybe about 4 or 5 a year, with basically two in the summer, 2 close to Christmas, and like 1 in the middle of the year, and you'd probably be all right. But that's another conversation for another time. Now, getting back to the weirdness aspect, I do think that people do need to go against the grain. They need to go against the modern conventions, because we are now to the point where everything just kind of seems like it's the same type of game. Every shooter is practically the same type of shooter. Every sports game is pretty much the same sports game. I miss the arcade days, because the arcade days, you had a lot of people mainly in smaller teams that could put out some really interesting ideas. A good AA game team could put out something with an interesting idea and a neat hook that will allow you to play through a game, and you can get a good 10-20 hours of gameplay out of that. That's how we got our Gravity Rushes. That's how we got like games like Bubble Bobble. That's how you get games like Super Mario Brothers and stuff like that. These are all games that are done by people that not necessarily normal people by any account of the word, but they're taking things that we have enjoyed, like the modern platformer or the modern shooting game or whatever, and they just turn it on its head. But all it takes is like for people to stop being so damn boring. Anyways, I'm out of here. Thank you for joining for this. See you next boss fight. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.